Hi everyone, this is Andrew at Plainview Farm, and in my right hand I have a brown paper sack. And in case you were wondering, no, the brown paper sack is not for me. Watch it. It's not for Charles and Bella either. Brown paper sack is for these guys, if I can catch them. Hey buddy, this one right here specifically is the one that my kids call Scout McMean Goat. Not because he's mean, but just because they think that he's a little bit rough, I guess. Where do you think you're going? And catching them is honestly half the battle. Here, boys. So whenever it comes to worming my goats, I don't really mess around because they can get a heavy worm load fairly quickly to the point that it honestly can become a serious problem and ultimately cost them their lives. Hopefully these two are not going to fight like they did the other day. But as I was saying, it gets to the point that it can very quickly become a fatal issue. So I use two different wormers. Now, not all goat wormers are going to do the same thing. There's really not much in the way of goat wormers specifically. What I actually use are cattle poron wormers. And in this instance, I'm using Cydectin and Valbazen. I use them together because they work together to get the job done, to get all of the worms that we're trying to get rid of, all the parasites. And as well, whenever it comes to goats, I do not have a regular worming schedule. I worm them as needed because I do not want to build up resistance to my preferred wormers. They work, they do the job as they're supposed to, and I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to end up with resistance on my property to worms. I do have a lot of Sericea lespedeza on my property, and the Sericea lespedeza, which you can see growing right out there, does have worming properties, but it's not the end-all be-all whenever it comes to wormers. I still have to use my brown paper sack from time to time. And as I was saying, this little goat right here, he's the one that we are after today. One of the things that you can do with these little goats, hey buddy, one of the things that you can do with these little goats is pull down their eyelid, and obviously the camera's not. Back up, Dan. I'm trying to do a video. Anyway, you can pull down their eyelid. No. Get back from there. Stop it. Pigs. You can pull down their eyelid, their bottom of their eyelid, and get an idea about how anemic they are. If it's pale, starting to get pale instead of a bright pink, then you know that it's time to worm them. And we do that ever so often. Whenever I'm out here, I'll get a hold of them and pull their eyelid down and check. There actually is a little card that you can get that tells you, kind of where you need to be, where things are. And those are a great tool to have especially if you're just getting started. And actually, they're a great tool to have if you've raised goats for a long time, because they tell you, what's anemic, what's not, kind of on a scale there. But like I said, I'm going to get him taken care of, and that's really all there is to it. That's one of my favorite things about goats, is that that's all it took to worm him. We try to keep our goats tame and friendly, where we can get a hold of them like that and just worm them. And as I mentioned, these are cattle pour-on wormers, and we put them inside the goat. They go right down their throat into their stomach to help with the parasite load. So trying to get him, like I said, get him back up where he needs to be. And actually, while I'm at it, I'm going to try to get a hold of his twin brother if I can. And there's all kinds of information out there on dosing with this kind of stuff based on or based on the specific type of wormer that you use. But it's a good idea, you know, if you got goats, trying to figure out what to do with them, it's a good idea to check into that stuff. And like I said, worms are not anything to mess around with whenever it comes to goats, because they can get very sick in a hurry. Hey boys. Hey boys. I think he's going to be a little bit more difficult to get a hold of. Hey buddy. Hey. Ouch. And down the hatch. Well, I think a lot of this ended up on my pants. Oh well. Look, pinched my arm between my leg and his horn. Oh, and one thing I want to mention here too, I've slowly been tinkering away at my grandpa's old Farmall. This right here is a 1955, if I remember right, Farmall 300. It's either a 55 or a 56. I think it's a 55. Farmall 300. Belonged to my grandfather. It has not run in about 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, if I remember right. Water pump was bad on it, and I broke down and finally just ordered another one. I messed with the old one, and it was so seized up that I couldn't get it apart. So, like I said, I finally just broke down, ordered a new one, and I've been here and there whenever I've had a few minutes, just kind of chipping away at it and try to get it started, hopefully in the next week or so. So, be watching out for that video. All right, so the next thing I need to do, as far as parasite control goes, is need to recharge the fly rub for the cows. We're gonna take us a little walk down there and soak it down, I guess recharge it. I think that's what you do with the cow rub. I don't know, fly rub, whatever you want to call it. So the cows have been in this field right here, and there's a small pond over there that holds a little bit of water. Not much, actually it needs to be cleaned out. It's bigger than the other pond, but it needs to be cleaned out as well. And they've done as much as I want to let them do in there, so I've let them out into the alleyway and all of this area right now, trying to let them eat all of it down. And their water source is now the pond down there that I cleaned out last fall. And of course, that pond down there, that's where our fly rub is. And speaking of the cows, there they are, conveniently waiting for me, I guess. So I give you a verdict here on my fence so far. I'm not really impressed with the clips that are on these fiberglass rods. These clips on the fiberglass rods have not done a very good job at retaining that wire. Otherwise, fiberglass rods have done their job. It's just those clips I'm not real impressed with. So needless to say, I'm gonna have to come up with some sort of solution there. And actually one of the things I'm probably gonna do is come through here and maybe divide these paddocks into sections here, you know, 3 sections, by putting a steel T-post in my lines here, or a couple steel T-posts in my lines. Pull out a fiberglass rod and replace it with a steel T-post. That'll give me something to hang a reel from, so I can then subdivide these pastures as we get into stockpiled grazing here later in the fall and the first part of the winter. All right, cows, let me by. I want to beat you. I want to beat you down there. Come on, girl. Look at her watching me. All right, let's look here. Are they following me? Yep, I think they're coming. Come on, girls. And Samson. I also think that by putting a T-post out here in my cross fences, it will help give the fence a little bit of extra support. But having these goats coming through here and jumping between the wires a lot, that puts a little bit of additional stress on the fence. So I think the T-posts, you know, give it a little bit more support. I also plan to eventually add probably at least a third wire, if not a fourth one, into my cross fences. And I want to do that for the benefit of the goats. I can keep them where I want them a little bit easier. All right, so there it is, fly rub. Make sure all of these are hanging down like they're supposed to. And with these, I did just as is recommended and used permethrin and diesel fuel. Like I said, this is another one of those things that I'd really rather not mess around with. For the 100th time, I don't know, maybe. That's why we call it Plainview Farm. So anyway, I don't want to mess around with the flies. You end up with pink eye, and that's no fun. We've had pink eye problems in the past, and I'll tell you, we don't like it. So this is diesel fuel and a permethrin mixture. The cows go through this rub, and it gives them basically a coating on their backs and their faces that helps keep the flies off of them. Now, is spraying my cattle down with permethrin and diesel fuel, is that ideal? No, but for me, it's one of those pick your battles things. I've tried lots of different other remedies, and this one seems to be the one that is the most effective. I'm not a pro chemical guy. I don't like to use chemicals if I don't have to, but sometimes you have to. And like I said before, I'm not a big fan of pink eye. I'd rather do this than treat the cattle for pink eye. And the maker of this rub actually recommends doing what I'm doing here. You take the nozzle off of a pump sprayer and use it to soak it. Try to target this on the whole thing, but specifically on the swipes or whatever they call them. And of course the cows, they've realized that I'm not going to feed them, and they've gone back up that way. So the weather here in southern Missouri has been kind of mild for the last week or so. It's turned off dry. We had gotten plenty of rain Honestly, this year has been a great year for rain, especially compared to the last few years anyway. But it has recently turned off dry, which always makes you nervous because they say, you know, you're only, what, 2 weeks from a drought. There's a chance for rain tomorrow, but I'm hoping to try to get some more pasture clipping done. A lot of our weeds out here are coming on very strong and starting to put on seed heads, and we want to try to get on top of that as quickly as we can. Sometimes, you know, you're limited to what your schedule allows, and that's been my case lately. I just haven't, for one reason or another, been able to get it done. But that's one of the plans I have, is to do some mowing soon. So it's possible that aside from the Farmall 300, you know, will it start video, you may get another mowing video as well. Oh, and one other thing I feel like I should mention, this has been a good week for the farm in terms of sales. We've sold feeder pigs, we've sold goat kids, the goats that we wormed over there. You know, those are 2 of the only 6 that we have remaining that we're going to sell this year. And we've also, you know, locked up our sales on our butcher hogs. So it's been a good week. So with that being said, I hope you've had a good week, and I hope the coming week is good for you as well. As always, I appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.